I don't have a problem, but playing with by myself is kind of boring. If only there was a video game that would... Let's discover Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist of the Roses, a PS2 game released in 2001. I went into this game knowing absolutely nothing about it, and if life was kind to me, it would have stayed that way. But I started this quest, so I suppose this was inevitable. The game opens with an extremely long cutscene setting the scene for our card game adventure. Yes, that is correct. Is this going to be on the test? So the general premise is that Yugi is the exiled prince of England hiding out in France, and you have been summoned to rescue him, the Rose Duelist, through time and space. I get to set my name, Otter, as usual, and select my deck. Let's see, Snake Princess, some weird golem thing I've never seen before, or a Lightning Neko, 10 out of 10, best game NA. Right away, we're confronted by Seto as he explains just how out of our own league we are. He turns out to be a pretty chill dude, however, giving us the option to choose which side we wish to fight for. Sorry, Seto, I know you have money, but I'm the hero of this story. He bows out, challenging us to come and find him ourselves, and after a quick meeting with Yugi in France, we can begin our fight against the White Knights. Now, if you don't know how to play Yu-Gi-Oh!, don't worry. The rules, the card effects, the strategies for playing, everything has nothing whatsoever to do with this game other than the names and pictures of the cards. So here's how the rules of this game works. You exist on a chessboard style map represented by your deck leader. If you level up your leader, you'll slowly unlock new abilities for them, but they start out powerless. You start each game with a pool of 4 summon points which allow you to summon monsters. The level of the monsters is removed from your summon pool, and at the start of each turn 3 points are restored to the pool without a maximum. Some monsters can be combined together to make stronger monsters with extra powers or effects. You try to move your monsters around the field to destroy your opponent's monsters and attack their deck leader directly. The most important aspect of this game is favorable ground. Different types of terrain will favor different types of monsters. If a monster is on favorable ground, it gains 500 attack and defense and can move 2 spaces instead of 1. But like all Yu-Gi-Oh! Games, our starting deck is a hodgepodge of fairly weak monsters with very little synergy to begin with, so of course our first opponent won't really be a challenging field. What? The entire field is either impassable terrain or monsters that are favored by that land type. I have no monsters favored by this terrain in my entire deck. My strongest monster in the entire deck is 1900 attack points. There is 1 card in the deck I can use to buff it, and 1 card in the deck that would change part of the terrain into favorable ground for me. None of this matters, however, because here's the first monster he played. Yeah, that's 2100 attack on the first turn, 1700 turn 2, 2000 turn 3. Now, let's keep in mind that the strongest monster I have yet drawn is only 1500 attack, woefully inadequate to deal with anything the computer has summoned. But it extends deeper than this. Every monster that the computer player has played has been 4 stars. You are supposed to start with 4 stars at the beginning of the battle, so that's fine. Turn 2, it supposedly regained 3 summon power, but lo and behold, it summons another 4 star. The same thing is done the turn after that. Essentially, this game is only playable and winnable if 5 things happen. 1, I draw the 5-star 1900 attack monster in my deck. 2, I draw the power-up card that goes with it. 3, I draw the card to change the landscape in an area. 4. The enemy leader does not leave the area that I changed. And 5. The enemy leader does not play any trap cards to auto-destroy the only strong card. Which, by the way, I wasn't given anything defensive to deal with the enemy. My deck is about as useless as it physically could be. Well, I have 2 enemies I could fight. Maybe I'm supposed to come back to this guy later. Let's try fighting the other option. Are you serious? The entire battlefield is once again favorable to every card in his deck. First turn, 1700. Turn 3, 2400. 6 stars. May I remind you that no card in my deck ever had the potential to be any stronger than 2900 under absolutely perfect circumstances. To give you a concept of how unlikely these circumstances are, I did the math. I have a 1 in 50,616 chance to draw those 3 cards together to start the game, which I must start the game with them or else I will be out of position and they'll be playing stronger cards. To then move forward and place the mountain in such a way that I can have 2 turns for him to escape while playing my trump card and attacking him raises it to roughly 1 in 101,232. Then, to have them not play any of the roughly 3 trap cards that can auto-kill my only useful monster raises the chances to 1 in 233 quintillion, 541 quadrillion, 504 trillion, 544 billion, 661 million, 900,000. Okay, maybe I just picked hard mode by being Thunder Nyan Nyan. First, let's start all over again using a different deck. I'll go with the Golem that I've never seen before. What is that thing anyway? I've never heard of it. Well, I looked it up, and it is a real card, except it's crappier than its real-world counterpart. They left its summoning level the same, they left its name and its picture the same, they even left its effect the same, but they dropped its attack by 500 points. Its defense is still the same, but the attack is down. And in a game where it makes that much of a difference, you're paying 5 stars of summoning power to summon a 1600 attack monster. Why they felt they needed to kick this thing in the shins while it already wasn't a playable card and was a deck leader instead, I have no idea. Whatever, it has a monster with more attack that can be buffed. Not high enough to face off against the Dino deck still, but I can actually lower the odds of victory low enough to win a couple of games against the Bug deck. This is still essentially unplayable, however. The only ways to win are to A. Chase him into the corner with the big monster and not get caught by the insta-kill traps, or B. To have the deck leader go full potato and completely ignore a monster from behind it in favor of throwing everything at my deck leader instead. It's not that this is hard, it's more that it's outright unplayable. You know what? Let's just try something. What happens if I go the douchebag route and want to side with Seto against those who summon me? They can't seriously have made this the way to progress, but let's take a look. So let's name ourselves Evil, since this isn't my choice as Otter, and I have a different selection of decks available. Because I picked a different name, I have a different selection of starter decks available. I can't decide if I want to be angry about this, or if this is awesome and adds replayability. Well, it won't matter either way, because we'll go into the level, and it'll all be unhelpful terrain that constantly favors her. So this is how the game was intended to be played, apparently, I guess? This is what was described as what would be coming in the tutorial, a mostly neutral field with areas of power to be played around. You can't upgrade your deck except by winning fights, and if you can't win fights, you'll never get anywhere, so apparently this is the only way to go through the first time. Whatever, the game's playable now. It's downright easy, actually, so let's continue through. Now, you may notice that you saw me pick Wolf Alexander, but from here on out, my deck leader will look like a snake. Yeah, I kind of shut the game off in exasperation and had to start over again. So I went back to my Otter name and took the last deck I hadn't tried yet, the Snake Princess. After each successful battle, you'll get to spin a slot machine with each card your opponent used during the battle on the wheel. Now, unlike every other slot machine in existence, each thing you roll, you'll get that card. So what's the advantage to rolling the same card all 3 times? You get an extra, more powerful card. Hooray! Almost immediately the gains mean nothing, however. The maps almost instantly go right back to the enemy eternally being on advantaged land, and they all have unified type abilities that you've never seen. Meanwhile, because each character has different cards, I'm incapable of creating a unified deck on my part. What's that? I could keep playing the same exact people over and over and over in the vain, desperate attempt to get new cards based off of the spinner instead of repeats of the same cards that I already have? In an absolute atrocity of a method to get cards that is stacked against you from the very beginning, worse than the actual TCG itself? Screw that! That is an absolute waste of time, and you're stupid if you try it. The game wants to cheat, so will I. I unlocked the most powerful cards to make an actually dangerous deck. So now I can... What? Are you serious? So there's one more mechanic that I'd totally forgotten about. Each card has a cost, and your deck needs to cost less than your opponent's deck. Costs are incredibly arbitrary, and would you like an innately good monster that will make a difference on the battlefield? Well, you'd better be sure to include some super cheap monsters or spells that you don't actually need to compensate. But finally, I had a real deck. I managed to get enough dinosaurs and reptiles to put together a semi-coherent deck and keep going through. So I go on to the next deck, and I'm done. Sometimes your abilities simply won't go off. For instance, combining power-up cards. The descriptions on the cards say there's no reason they shouldn't be combined, so you go to combine the cards in your hand. And instead of combining and powering up your card, instead, it overwrites your card. I have no explanation for why this happens, and it continues to be a thing throughout. There are lots of situations where cards simply will not perform as advertised or will not work properly, and you have no reason or way to know why. This is the first deck commander to have special commander abilities. Yeah, remember those? I mentioned it back at the beginning? Yeah, there's a reason that I haven't mentioned them since. See, despite getting this far into the game and replaying each fight at least twice, my leader still has not leveled up. I have no idea if or when she even will level up. So of course, because this is the first commander with those kind of abilities, and we're on the easier side, he'll have like 1, maybe 2 abilities that'll be important, but not absolutely earth-shattering, right? Wrong. 4 abilities. Ability number 1. All monsters within a certain range of the same type as the leader, i.e. his deck, all gain 500 extra defense. Ability 2. All monsters within a certain range around of the same type as the commander, see Ability 1, will have 500 extra attack. Ability number 3. That range takes up double the allotted space to cover pretty much the entire field. But that's still manageable, right? It's difficult because even the most basic of monsters, if they're now standing on ground that favors them, are up $1,000 each, but it's still doable. Bait them into areas that aren't favorable to them. They can't cross the center crush card areas, so this is doable, right? Well, power 4 is that any dinosaur is instantly destroyed the moment it hits the field. Oh wait, that's the only good cards I really have? Fine, how do I level up my team leader? Well, first step is you finish the game. Look, this game isn't playable. There's people all over online spitting out crap like, it's not hard, you're all just babies. Amazing music, awesome graphics, perfect gameplay, 10 out of 10 game, you idiots. No. You are categorically wrong on every count of that. First, the music. Is it passable? Even decent? Yeah. Is it anything I haven't heard before or that I'd bother to play again in my own time or that stays in your head and man, this is such a good track? No. And you wouldn't play it on your own time or go around humming it because it's great music either. Yes, the graphics are good for their time, but every time they try to show the monsters fighting, it feels like I'm watching a terrible puppet show. On top of that, you don't want to watch the graphics of the monsters fight because it takes so insanely long each and every time. This makes the time for animations in virtual chess look brief, and it's the same animations every time. The camera spins and zooms onto a different area depending on the battlefield type. Then you stare at both of the monsters. Then one does their move. Then the other does their move. Then the losing one falls on the ground and turns red. You stare at that for a bit. Then you can go back to your battle. It's so long and slow that you'll be bored by the end of the second time trying to watch it fully through. So yes, I suppose the animations that you actually want to look at are good, because they're rendering cards and basic figures with one repeated half second of animation. Game of the year, my bad. But the gameplay, perfect gameplay. What else do you play other than this, that this is your concept of perfect? Because I feel very, very sorry for you. It sounds cool in concept. Sort of Yu-Gi-Oh! Meets Dungeon Dice meets chess meets Stratego. That sounds good to me in theory, but in practice, it absolutely cripples the player to such an insane degree as to be entirely unplayable. Do I need to remind you of my percentage of winning with the Thunder Nyan Nyan deck? Oh, and thinking of that deck, it shouldn't suck. It turns out the names the decks are based on are those of the main characters. Somehow the game interprets Otter as Yugimoto. Yet those 3 deck options are Yugi's options. But when you have a game where even when using a more powerful deck, supposedly, my chances of winning hinge on drawing 2 specific cards fast enough in a 40-card deck, even though I'm not likely to win because my opponent still has more powerful monsters at his call? If you're still one of those fanboys, here's an analogy that you might be able to get through your heads. The game is playable in the same way that Russian roulette is playable if you're using machine gun. And somewhere in the clip for the machine gun are loaded 3 dud bullets out of the whole clip at random. If all 3 of those dud bullets come at the very beginning of the clip, one after another, and you press the trigger fast enough, you could win. Do you want to play? Did it feel like you earned it when you could only win because a computer was a potato, or you got a very specific set of cards and then got incredibly lucky on top of that? Because if so, good for you. Why not try my Russian roulette variant? I'm sure it won't be as hard as I claim. If it wasn't clear to the rest of you, don't play this game. Don't buy this game, and if you own it, hide it somewhere, far away so that no one can ever find it to play it either. Because they can't play it. I'd rather play Elmo's Letter Adventure again. At least there was something you could do and accomplish in that game, even if this was competently made. I know I can't take that statement back, but frankly, the only question I have left for this game is who playtested you, because I need to find them and have some words. And then make sure they're never hired by anyone again.
Hey there everybody. Bet you were starting to think I wouldn't manage to get it up today, weren't you? Well, here's the video as promised. On Thursday, I'm still on schedule. With that said, for those of you who are new, welcome. New videos every Thursday, so make sure that you like and subscribe in order to see the video next Thursday. Cause this time, I can guarantee you, it'll be a game that I had fun playing. So until that time, I'll see you all then, and remember, life is always another game waiting to be discovered.
Seem to care a thing about me. Rather live without me than to have my arms around you when the nights are cold and you're so all alone.